Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into something pretty huge, TSMC's just gigantic investment in U.S. chip manufacturing. Yeah, this is one of those stories that I think kind of flew under the radar for a lot of people,
Mm.
but it really has the potential to, completely reshape the tech landscape.
I mean, we're talking about the largest single foreign direct investment in U.S. history, right?
Exactly. $165 billion. That's billion with a B.
Yeah, that's a lot of zeros. So TSMC, the Taiwan Semiconductor manufacturing company, for anyone who's not familiar, they're basically the world's leading chip maker.
Yeah, if you've got a smartphone, a laptop, a game console, chances are it's got a TSMC chip inside it.
So what are they actually doing with all of this money? Like, what's the plan here?
So they're building 3 chip fabrication plants, 2 packaging facilities, and a major R&D center, all in Arizona.
Whoa, hold on, slow down there. What's a chip fabrication plant, and like, why do they need a packaging facility?
Okay, sure. So a chip fabrication plant, or a fab for short,
Mm.
is where silicon wafers are turned into the tiny, incredibly powerful chips that run pretty much all of our digital lives.
Okay, so like a factory for chips?
Yeah, kind of, but these are way more sophisticated than your average factory.
Mm.
We're talking like billion-dollar clean rooms
Mm.
with incredibly precise machinery.
Got it. So they're making the chips in the fabs, and then what? They get shipped off to Arizona for packaging?
No, the packaging facilities are right there in Arizona, too.
Yeah.
Once the chips are made, they need to be packaged and connected to other components before they could be used in a device.
Oh, okay, I see. So it's like the whole process from start to finish all happening in one place.
Exactly. And that's a big deal because it means the U.S. is going to have a much more secure and reliable source of these incredibly important chips.
Okay, so they're making chips, packaging them, and then what about this R&D center? What's happening there?
That's where they're going to be developing the next generation of chip technology. The stuff that's going to power the future of AI, quantum computing, and who knows what else.
So it's not just about making more chips, it's about making better chips.
Exactly. And that's what makes this investment so significant. It's not just about boosting production. It's about pushing the boundaries of what's possible with technology.
Okay, so we've got what? TSMC is building a whole chip-making ecosystem in Arizona, but the big question is why? Why are they doing this, and what does it mean for the future of tech?
Well, that's a great question, and that's exactly what we're going to be digging into in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, so make sure you stick around for that because things are about to get really interesting. Okay, so last time we were talking about this just colossal investment TSMC is making in the U.S.
Right, yeah, $165 billion to build this state-of-the-art chip-making hub in Arizona.
Like, just wrapping my head around that number is mind-boggling. But the big question that we left off with is why? Why is TSMC doing this, and why is the U.S. so eager to have them?
Well, it all boils down to this idea of technological sovereignty.
Technological what now?
Sovereignty. Basically, it means that countries and companies are realizing just how crucial these advanced chips are.
Mm-hmm.
They're not just components anymore, they're strategic assets.
Okay, so like chips are the new oil.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Whoever controls the production of these chips has a huge advantage in the global economy and even in terms of national security.
I see. So the U.S. wants to make sure they're not reliant on other countries for something so important.
Exactly, especially when you consider the recent chip shortage.
Oh, right. That was a mess. I remember trying to buy a new graphics card, and it was like impossible to find one.
Yeah, well, that shortage really exposed how vulnerable global supply chains are when it comes to semiconductors. The U.S. doesn't want to be in that position again, so they're trying to bring chip production back home.
And that's where TSMC comes in.
Exactly. The U.S. government has been offering huge incentives to companies like TSMC to encourage them to build factories here.
I think I read something about the CHMPS Act. Is that part of this?
Yeah, the GIPS Act is a big part of it. It's a government program that provides billions of dollars in subsidies and tax breaks to companies that build chip factories in the U.S.
So TSMC gets a sweet deal, and the U.S. gets a more secure supply of chips. It's a win-win, right?
Well, it's definitely a win for both countries economically, but it's also important to consider the geopolitical implications.
Oh, right. TSMC is a Taiwanese company, and there's been a lot of tension between China and Taiwan lately.
Exactly. And China sees Taiwan as part of its territory.
Mm-hmm.
So when TSMC starts shifting production to the U.S., China sees that as a potential threat.
So this isn't just about economics, it's about global power dynamics, too.
Absolutely. The semiconductor industry is at the heart of the tech world, and whoever controls that industry has a lot of influence.
Wow, so this is way bigger than just making faster phones and laptops.
Oh, yeah, this is about the future of technology and who gets to shape it.
So TSMC is kind of caught in the middle of this geopolitical tug of war.
Yeah, you could say that By moving some of its production to the U.S., TSMC is reducing its vulnerability to potential disruptions in Taiwan.
Like if things were to escalate between China and Taiwan.
Exactly. But it's also important to remember that TSMC is a business. They're making a strategic decision that's in their best interests.
And part of that is being closer to some of their biggest customers, right? Like Apple and Qualcomm.
Right, a lot of the big U.S. tech companies rely on TSMC for their chips. So it makes sense for TSMC to have a major presence here.
Okay, so it sounds like this move to Arizona is driven by a whole bunch of factors: economics, geopolitics, even just good old-fashioned business strategy.
Exactly, and it's going to have ripple effects throughout the entire tech industry.
So what are some of those ripple effects? Like, how is this going to affect us, the everyday consumer?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's what we're going to be exploring in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, so we've talked about the what and the why of TSMC's big move to Arizona.
Right, $165 billion investment in U.S. chip making.
But now I kind of want to bring it back down to earth a little bit. Like, how is all of this going to actually impact you and me, the everyday consumers?
Well, for one, it should hopefully mean an end to those annoying chip shortages we've been seeing.
Oh yeah, tell me about it. I'm still waiting for a new graphics card to become available.
Right, so with more chips being made in the U.S., we should see a more stable supply, which means fewer shortages and potentially even lower prices.
Okay, so more chips, more stability, hopefully less money coming out of our wallets. That's all good news. But what about the bigger picture? How does this impact the future of technology in general?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. This isn't just about making more of the same chips. It's about developing the next generation of chip technology.
Right, like that R&D center they're building.
Exactly. That's where they're going to be pushing the boundaries of what's possible with things like AI, quantum computing, and who knows what else.
So it's like a breeding ground for innovation.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
having that breeding ground here in the U.S. could be a huge boost for the tech industry.
Okay, so faster phones, cheaper laptops, that's all great. But are we talking about like flying cars and teleportation anytime soon?
Well, maybe not quite that futuristic. But imagine a world where your smartphone is 1,000 times more powerful than it is today, or where AI can help us solve complex problems like climate change and disease.
Okay, now that's something I can get excited about.
And it's not just about the U.S. either. Remember how we talked about a more balanced, multipolar tech world? This move by TSMC could be a big step in that direction.
Right, the idea that innovation can happen anywhere, not just in Silicon Valley.
Exactly, and that could lead to some really exciting breakthroughs as different regions around the world bring their own unique perspectives and expertise to the table.
Okay, so a more diverse, more collaborative tech landscape. I like the sound of that. But wouldn't that also make things a lot more complicated?
It definitely adds complexity,
Hmm.
but it's a good kind of complexity, I think. It's like having a more diverse ecosystem. You've got more species interacting with each other, which makes the whole system stronger and more resilient.
I see. So it's not just about chips, it's about creating a more interconnected, more vibrant tech world.
Exactly, and that's what makes this such a fascinating moment in history. We're seeing a real shift in the balance of power in the tech industry, and it's going to be really interesting to see how it all plays out.
I don't know about you, but I'm feeling pretty optimistic about the future of technology.
Me too. I think we're on the cusp of some really amazing breakthroughs, and I can't wait to see what the next few years hold.
Well, on that note, I think we'll wrap things up here. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into TSMC's big investment.
It's been my pleasure.
And as always, keep exploring the ever-evolving world of technology.